guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. I'm Eva and I'm here to talk through the things I've read in July. As I mentioned in my TBR, my grandparents spent 2 weeks here, more or less, so I literally didn't do much reading those 2 weeks. So it's not a big wrap up as I wished for. However, I did read a massive book, so I'm happy about that. And also I think, as you could have seen from the statistics, that overall I had a very positive reading month. And when I put them in order, sometimes it's also about the stories that sip down my skin and the ones that will stay for me the longest, in a sense. But as you could have seen, again, all the books in here were amazing. And without further ado, I'm gonna start with number 6, and this will have to be Medicine Walk. This is a book that my book club chose, and we met at the end of July and we discussed these together, and I was lucky enough to find this on Script, so I didn't purchase the physical copy and I just listened to this, and it was a very well narrated audiobook. This is this story of this kid who has been estranged to his father basically all his life. He knows about who the father is and he has seen him a couple of times before the story actually starts, but he has never spent much time, and he has grown up with what is referred to an old man. At the beginning, or at least he speaks about him as an old man. So he's been raised by someone else, although he has seen the father now and then. And now the father is about to die. You know this from the beginning. The father is dying of, I think, a liver disease or something. He's a drunk and he's dying, and he goes back to the son and just says, I'd like for you to take me to this specific land where they are Native Americans, so I would like to be buried there. So they go on this final walk together. So it's a very sad premise in a sense, so you know from the beginning that the father is about to die, and I think it was a very extremely well portrayed depiction of addiction, and especially with alcoholism. And I struggled by listening to this because it does, if you have childhood trauma and you've experienced something along the side of addiction, then you know the father character might resonate with you as it did with me. Like, it did stir up a lot of personal trauma that I had in my childhood, and I became very frustrated with, you know, the dad, this male character. So that was hard, but at the same time I thought this was very well narrated. This was very well told. It's a standalone and it does what it says on the back. It does present you with the story. It does give you the answers that you're looking for at the beginning, especially by following, you know, this young boy who's the main character. I think by the end I was very satisfied with everything. This is also by a native author, and I did like all the bits about, you know, his identity as a Native American, I mean the characters, and I guessed some of the things that happened before, but still by guessing it didn't take away the fact that I was very pleased with it. 4 stars, I stand by that. It was a very good book, very nice audiobook, and it can just be a bit hard, so you know, you might just want to look at the trigger warning just in case. Then I listened to the other audiobook of this month, which was The Simple Wild. This has a recurring theme of actually being about this daughter. She is been raised by her mother in Canada, I believe, but she was born in Alaska because her mother was married to this pilot who has this aircraft company. But basically the mother was coming from a big city, and she just, at one point when she's 2 years old, leaves the dad behind. She just says, I can't live in Alaska, it's too isolated, I need to live in a city. So she takes the daughter, go back to Canada, and unfortunately the father, for a series of events, become estranged. And now it's been 20 years, if not more, when our main protagonist, she receives a call from a friend of her father just saying, your father has lung cancers, I think you should come and visit. And so she decides to just go and meet her dad, basically, for the first time. So yeah, common theme on estranged fathers there. First of all, get your tissues before you get into this. I cried. Like, I ugly cried actually with these, which to me is a testament that this was quite good. And also I think that I've not read a romance book in a long time, and I know though that if I go with a K.A. Tucker romance, I always get it right. And again, romance is not my genre at the moment, it's not something I read often, but I love K.A. Tucker writing style. This is also like, there is a background of romance, so there is a romance element to this, but I think there is way more to this. It's definitely about her getting to know her father. So it's also a history about reconnecting with your loved ones. And I laughed, I cried. I think there is a hate to love romance in this, which I absolutely loved. I had some moments where they do pranks to each other. I was very amused. And I don't feel the need to continue on, potentially because this is a bit of a history repeats itself situation that we got going on there. So I don't know if I'm gonna continue on, because I feel pretty satisfied from this, to be fair. But eventually I might not. I'm gonna just leave it at that. But yeah, K.A. Tucker, if you're into romance, you don't want to miss K.A. Tucker. So number 4, I've actually got The Rook. I finally finished this. This is an urban fantasy, having MI5 but for wizards. So you got this secret society that protects England from magical threats, and they are hidden from, you know, main society. And you follow this main protagonist, who's actually woke up one day and she has no recollection of her past, who she is, none whatsoever, and she finds herself in a field of bodies, and all of them have like gloves on. This was fun. This was very, very fun. Not fun in the sense that some of the topics in this were quite heavy, but he has this kind of mirthful vibe throughout. And I think the main protagonist, she is definitely responsible to make this so enjoyable. And I also appreciate that this was the entire MI5 or wizard structure. It was extremely well explained. It's not just one of those books that gives you information, just says, you know, that's how the world works, just accept it. He actually takes its time to explain to you how this system works, why it works this way, and it does make a lot of sense. And it was just definitely a fresh tale in the urban fantasy genre, at least that I've read. And it did feel a bit lengthier than it could have been. It felt a bit dense. Maybe dense is the right word to say. It did feel a bit dense. Like I felt like I was reading this forever, in a sense. But this doesn't take away my enjoyment of it, or the fact that I do want to continue on with the series. I think just 2 books are out, but it should be a trilogy. So definitely continue on, and I gave this very solid 4 stars. Number 3, I have Wuthering Heights. So this is a classic, the only book written by Emily Bront. And first of all, can we appreciate this? This is absolutely stunning. And I love that these pages are actually plastic pages, because I can't ruin them, you know? I can't ruin them. I love the experience of reading this book physically. Wuthering Heights, you know what this is about, right? And if you don't, it's about these men who rent this house, and this house is owned by someone who has got a house, Wuthering Heights, very close, like a few miles away. So he visits them, and when, you know, this renter goes and visits the owner of the house and his family, he finds out that all of them are very unlikable characters. So then when he goes back to his rented house, there is a maid that tells him the story of the family. And I have to say that I did enjoy this overall. I put this book down and I thought I needed a few days to decide how I felt about it, and ultimately I think I really enjoyed this. But this is all to do as the story of Heathcliff, sorry if I'm butchering the name, and Catherine, but actually you follow more the generation after them, and how the generation after them is impacted by what happened to Heathcliff and Catherine, rather than following their story. If I have to critique something, is that I just know, we are just told that Heathcliff and Catherine have these dynamics, but we don't see those dynamics play out. While with the following generation, we do see the dynamics of the characters play out. They do make more sense, and they make you feel more. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, because I thought I was gonna see Heathcliff's and Catherine's story, and it's not very much that. And it was overstepping a lot of boundaries that literature had back in the days, and even today this is quite daring. This depicts physical and emotional abuse, some of the most horrendous emotional abuse actually that I've seen in a while, and it doesn't make amends for it. It doesn't smooth the edges of it. It just finishes where there is not really any redemption, there is not really any saving grace. And although we can imagine why Heathcliff is the way he is, again, we are not given the context of him becoming so deserving of hate, so loathsome. I despised Heathcliffs, and we are not told why. We are just given hints, but it's left to our imagination. So by the end, I couldn't really justify him and his actions because I had not seen them happen. And I enjoyed it overall for what it does, how bold it is, the atmosphere. It tells you these are very likable characters. You're gonna hate them, but the story moves pretty quickly in a sense. So you're just there, unbelievably reading and trying to find redemption or some reasons why people are the way they are, and you don't find it at the end. And I think that was very eccentric, and I respect that. I do respect this book a lot, in a sense. I'm so glad I read it. It took me too much time. It was good. It was good, but it's definitely not for everybody. I think this is a very divisive book, and I ended up giving 4 stars. It's been a book that will stick with me though. Yeah, it's definitely one that also sparks a lot of conversations, which is what I like in books. Then I've got number 2, Memories of Ice. So this is 1,200 pages book, and I managed to read this by the time my grandparents left, so that was remarkable. I'm just gonna say it to myself because I deserve this. But this is an epic high fantasy series, dark fantasy, and it's epic in its proportions. So if you've ever seen someone speaking about this or seen any video online trying to explain this world to you, you understand why I'm not gonna attempt a synopsis, because it's basically impossible. This is epic in terms of the vision of the authors. This is a series that also has a prequel kind of side series written by another author, but I am from now just focusing on the 10 Erikson books. So this is book number 3, and I'm reading them in the way they were chronologically published for now, I believe. And this takes place at the same time partly as the second book, so Dead House Gates, so just in another part of the world. So that's how epic it is. From my understanding of the series, which is very little, is that you follow different sets of characters in the same world but in very different areas of the world, and you just follow different timeline in a sense, different plots, different wars and so forth. In a sense, this was extremely confusing. Extremely confusing. And I have to say that this is also my fault, because I think these books, if you want one suggestion, if you want to go into this series, is you need to read them back to back. Otherwise, you're gonna get lost. If I read one a year, I forget, I can't connect the things, and I think it's also a series that will need a reread eventually to fully grasp what you are witnessing. So most of his book went over my head. Like, I didn't understand who was who, how the magic system worked. Again, if you have heard of this saga before, you'll know that Erikson doesn't explain things to you. He just expects that you at one point will understand. And I guess you will, but you have to read the books. So read the books back to back. Don't be me. I do appreciate the writing, but it is doubtlessly too long. And I think that the amount of plot that's in here would have justified probably 400 pages, maybe. And instead it's 1,200. So yeah, it was a bit slow, but I did love how it comes to an end in the circle. And I think that I would have loved even more if I had attached more to the characters by reading back to back. And yeah, I will definitely continue on with the series. Definitely continue on with this. But I'm hoping to read them a bit more quicker so I can fully grasp it. It's very nice writing, it's very dark, it's very harrowing, but I just think that the way I'm going about these is not the right way, because I detach from the characters and I should just power through this series so I can appreciate it more. And at number 1, I have read The Summer That Melted Everything by Tiffany McDaniels. Now, I am not gonna spend too much time talking about this book just because I can't. The premise of this is that you got these man, he's a lawyer, and one day he writes a letter to the devil daring him to come to his small town in Ohio, and a few days later a black boy comes to town and just says, "I'm the devil," and things unfold from there. It's been since A Little Life that I didn't read something so devastating. This is a debut novel, and I think you have to try your writing to understand if it's for you or not. For me, it was clearly for me. This book just got under my skin in a way that, I don't know, even A Little Life didn't that much, which is saying something, because Little Life, I remember Little Life as being a whole thing. This one, you kind of, you know the bed is coming because it's not spoiler, you know from the beginning. And because you followed two timelines where you follow, you know, one of the main protagonists when he's old, recounting what happened in his childhood. So you know it's coming. You can see the destiny of his character unfold and happen, and it's just like a ride you can't stop. And the way this is written, it just, I had shivers. And it's one of those books where I finished it and I put it down, and although in a sense the story completes, so it's a standalone and you know it finishes here, it left me with so many questions. It's one of those books where I was like, wait, I need my friends to read this because I need to discuss this. Like, I've got a theory, you might have another theory. What did I just read? This was absolutely remarkable. This is, and I can say right now, is one of the best things I've read in a long while. I have immediately picked up more by the author, and I will read everything this author put out. I think she's known for her poetry. So my battery is about to die. I'm gonna finish this video here, but I think I still need to find the words to explain how much I loved this while having one of the most emotional responses reading this. Sorry guys for the abrupt ending, but battery is about to die. Have a lovely day, night, depending where you are. Let me know what was your favorite read of the month. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!